It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog.
Are you ready to get down to business? Join seasoned entrepreneur, community leader, and Army veteran Scott Shalom Klein, who will take you behind the scenes with those who work in America's small business scene and speak with leaders making an impact, creating jobs, and telling their story in entrepreneurship. So let's get down to business. On AM 560, The Answer, here's your host, Shalom Klein.
And indeed, we're all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk a lot about business here. You're on with Get Down to Business. I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts on my website at syklein.com. And while you are there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you'll not want to miss. I'm thrilled to kick it off in talking about conversations, because conversations, as we know, it's about much more than talking. It's a skilled activity. In addition to what's said out loud, there's a lot that's left unsaid, thoughts and feelings. And there's been a lot that's been written about cultural problems, but not really how to fix them. That's why I'm thrilled to be joined by tech veteran Douglas Squirrel, who has seen company after company implement all the right practices, but fail to see results. We're going to talk about why. He has written the book, quite literally, called Agile Conversations: Transform Your Conversations, Transform Your Culture. And again, with a wealth of knowledge and experience, I'm thrilled to be joined by Douglas Squirrel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Shalom. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. I know you've been coding for 40 years, led software teams for 20. You've done a lot of things primarily in that sort of world of software and technology, but a lot of startups. So tell us a little bit about where you caught this bug and interest about culture.
Well, it happened because I kept failing over and over again. And I would bring in some new nifty idea that I'd read about or thought was helpful. And I'd come to see my engineers, and they would say, "Oh, that's just another crazy fad, Squirrel. That's not something we want to do. That's not going to help us. We'd much rather talk to our computers. We'd much rather do the clever technical things that we'd like to do." And I couldn't get through to them on the business alignment that was so vital, because I'm sure a lot of your listeners have spent tons and tons of money on technology that didn't solve their business problem. And that happened to me over and over again. So I looked for something that could solve that problem. And it turned out to be something that we're doing right now, which is having a more effective conversation.
Absolutely. And I know you've written quite a bit about this. I know you speak quite a bit about this. And we'll make sure, of course, our listeners can find all that you have put out there. You don't keep this as a secret.
No.
But let's talk about the new fad and the new trend, which I'd argue probably not as much of a fad and trend as some might think, but AI, artificial intelligence. How should our businesses, realizing primarily we're talking to a small business audience, be using artificial intelligence to be more efficient? And is it a substitute for the people in our organizations?
Absolutely not. So I don't have time for all three of my laws of AI, although if any of your listeners want to get in touch, I'm happy to send that to them. But the first law is the most important law, and that is keep the robot off the stage. The problem is that we keep trying to use artificial intelligence to talk to humans, and that's not what it's designed for, although it looks that way. What it's actually good for is a tremendous research resource. So imagine you get a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, completely ignorant new graduate, and that graduate can read your entire library plus the entire internet in about 10 seconds, and then give you a useful but uninformed answer. And if you can make use of that, then ChatGPT and all its friends are tremendously valuable to you for organizing information, for getting to the right data, but not for writing it. Because the writing, frankly, is horrible. It's terribly boring and anodyne and not what you want to put out there. So that's one use that I think is tremendously valuable. And one that I am using it for in conversations is having it actually be a troupe of actors. So you tell the machine, you be my annoying boss, and then I also want you to be the very persnickety chief financial officer, and I want you to have a conversation with me about my IT budget. And you can practice that conversation and get better at it, and the AI helps you with it. But for God's sake, don't let it talk to your customers.
I think that is so important. Lots that's relevant to businesses of all kinds and of all sizes. But Squirrel, one of the things that I am very mindful of is as we invest in technology, it's very hard to measure. It's very hard, especially for smaller organizations and for entrepreneurs, to measure the return.
You know what? Hang on, Shalom. It's not hard to measure. Everybody thinks so, but it's actually easy to measure.
Tell me more.
So the trick is that you want to measure using things that are actually business meaningful. And that's where I started. You asked me about how I got into this. I was trying to do that kind of measurement, and I found it very difficult because the engineers weren't familiar with having a conversation about business. But the great thing is that, for example, if you read any financial report, any board report, anything like that with financial numbers in it, those folks are tremendous. They've been doing it for thousands of years, so they've got good at it, unlike us engineers. They are tremendous at telling the story. So they'll give you a beautiful graph of your cash flow, and they'll say, we're going to run out of money unless we sell a few things by next month. So get off your butt and sell things. And they will tell you that kind of narrative. The trick is that you can get your engineers to give you a similar kind of narrative if you help them to know how to do it. If you tell them the technology strategy and the business strategy, if you tell them why the things that they're doing are going to contribute to a result, like reducing cost or increasing profit or getting into new markets, and you train them and help them, maybe with a little help from outside if they have a lot of trouble with it, in how to give you that kind of accountability. And the amazing thing is almost everybody listening to me who has a technology team has the ability to check on what the team is doing every single day. If you go and pug your engineers, you really kind of nail them to the wall, take them out to the pub and ask them some questions, they will admit to you that they can show you results every day. But the problem is we don't ask them enough, and we don't ask them to give us results in meaningful ways that help us understand the business and what their impact is. If we help them to do that, we can get much more profit out of them.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with the author of Squirrel's Tech Radar, Decoding Tech Talk and Agile Conversations. Transform your conversations, transform your culture. That is Douglas Squirrel. And we'll certainly get our listeners in touch with you shortly. But another trend that I'm seeing a lot of and hearing a lot of is about TikTok. And I know you really keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in society and, again, how it impacts professionals and businesses. Is TikTok really dangerous or just a place for innocent kids to make dance videos?
Well, it's certainly a place for innocent kids to make dance videos, and it has the potential to be a tremendous discovery vehicle. I know one very successful sales professional, Colleen Francis, who makes TikTok videos all the time, and she reaches junior salespeople who then introduce her to the more senior salespeople that actually buy from her. So if you're looking for a way to reach your audience, and your audience is quite young and interested in video, then that might be a way to do it. Or what people are overlooking, I think, a lot when they're trying to market through TikTok is that there are people who are in organizations who can get excited about your value and then introduce you elsewhere. And that's Colleen's strategy. So I really like that. Are the Chinese spying on it? I don't think that matters very much to entrepreneurs like us. Are they influencing elections? Another interesting question. Probably so, but not something that I think we need to worry about in our marketing strategy.
That's good advice. Well, you have a lot of content and information that's out there. And I guess just on that last point that you made, a perfect segue is, what is the one thing that you think our entrepreneurs tuning in to Get Down to Business should be tracking and maybe might not yet be on the radar? What are you paying attention to?
Well, I'll tell you the one most exciting thing that I can't get everyone excited about, but some very forward-thinking people are looking at, is augmented reality. And the new tool that's come out for this is called the Apple Vision Pro. It's nowhere near ready. It's like the iPhone 1, where you couldn't even cut and paste information from one app to another. You could hardly even send email on the first iPhone. But as soon as you got that in your pocket, you realized, I'm dealing with a supercomputer here. The Vision Pro and its friends give you a tremendous business result. Forget, beautiful videos and, skiing down Kilimanjaro or whatever. If you get more screen real estate for your especially heavy knowledge workers, people in finance, people in technology, people who are dealing with huge amounts of data, if you give them more screen real estate, they can do more. And there's huge amounts of studies that say the more monitors you give those people, the better they do. That's why all the traders on the trading floors of the big banks, they have like 8 screens. Well, what if you could have 80 screens? What if you could have 89 screens all around you in the kitchen, down the hall, and you can work with all of that material by just moving your fingers around, just like we've seen in movies for a long, long time. So that's not ready yet. You're not going to get all those benefits right away, but it's the sort of thing to be watching, especially if you deal with huge amounts of data.
Well, I know the one thing that our listeners absolutely should be keeping track of is all that you're putting out there online. And I want to make sure our listeners have that as a homework assignment. We'll link in our show notes, of course, but how can we get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me directly at douglassquirrel.com. So all you have to do is remember my name, and there's all kinds of free material there. But then I also have a community of tech and non-tech executives working together to make tech insanely profitable. And that is squirrelsquadron.com. I'd be happy to help your listeners with all the topics we've been talking about today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Douglas Squirrel. We'll link in our show notes. We'll be right back and get down to business. Don't touch that dial.